Nyonyi mnyonyo. City?
Yes, please.
The days Sierra Leone.
Yes, quarrels end, but words once spoken never die.
Quarrels end, but words once spoken never die. Hold your tongue when you're quarreling with someone.
True.
Use your eyes.
Careful. Take the road less traveled. That's of humility.
Maliza hapo tu. Finished.
Wacha nikuache. Wacha nikuache. Please. Please. Tuache hiyo story. Please. Please. When someone tells you please tuache, just wacha.
You wacha.
Because if you push,
then
you will never forget the words that will come out of their mouth. Next. Be very careful. Completely careful. Higher. Look, we are celebrating 1 year. On Wednesday, the 13th of September, it will be 1 year since William Ruto did this. Kwekelea Biblia chini. And Rigiji did his Rigiji thing at Kasarani.
And the Bible has remained down.
Bible has remained down.
It was put down.
But Rigiji's thing, where was he? He is being told to say this, and him is just saying his own things.
He couldn't. The moment was a bit too surreal.
That was just.
But it can be. It can be.
Imagine here you are. They give him the reins of power.
You're catapulted from being a mwananchi mtukufu mheshimiwa MP. The next moment you're the vice president. Sorry, you're the deputy. You're the deputy president of the entire country. No, that thing, you know it. But then you are the moment, and it's there. Nah, that thing can mix up your signal.
And here you are, you've come in, and these are foreign dignitaries, presidents and all. I mean,
looking at you.
They're all looking at you, and here is a whole crowd. You're in a stadium. This is many people, and you are the one. Everybody is quiet. It's only you, and you can hear yourself in those loud because
Regardez.
In fact, why is that guy sounding like me?
Gashagwa.
And then Amadi says, do swear. Swear. Where?
Who's swearing? No.
It'll do a number on you, that's for sure.
It's a big thing.
It's massive. There's. I don't think if you haven't been through that experience, you can actually fathom what it's about. You can think you do, but you actually don't. And so when the changes come about and you find people changing, just take a pause.
Many can argue that even up to this point, 1 year later, you're still doing a number.
Yes, exactly. You just take a pause because you don't know what physical and metaphysical changes this particular person went through once they said this position.
It's a complete thing. But then there's a conversation I'd like to raise. And this is looking into our 60 years of independence so far. And looking into the future, right? So after independence, there's this group of leaders, some old, Jaramogi and Mzee, and then others who are young, Kina Tomboya, Kina Kibaki, and the young guys who came into government and they became the leaders of the state.
And they were in their 30s, man.
And they were young people.
Yes.
And there were the new leaders who are now taking over from this Mkoloni and holding the reins of government, and their responsibility is to deliver the dream of the freedom fighters into this new era of Kenya as an independent state, and all eyes are on them. And then they held that job for a while. You know, you can look at them, even Daniel Arap Moi was among them.
Yes.
That era came, Mzee and the older ones started dying off. We came into the multi-party era. We came into the Kibaki era. And when Kibaki was living in 2013, we can say that he and the other independent people basically just left.
We got a generational change.
A complete generational change after 2013. Mwai Kibaki left. He had brought in people who had worked with him in the 60s and 70s in government. They had worked together. They had delivered. And those ones left in 2013.
Yes, they did.
Those who had now risen in the late 70s, early 80s, into the 90s are the ones who were left with the reins of power. You could argue. So Raila Odinga and the others who are the younger Turks in the early 80s, the CJ Emeritus and the others, and Kina Kivuda Kibwana, were now the ones who were taking over. And then the younger ones, Kina William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta, who had got into positions of leadership in the 90s were in office. Kina Kalonzo Musyoka of the 80s were there. Kina Musalia Mudavadi of the late 80s and early 90s were there. These are the ones who now came up and have been leading the country. We are still with this generation, or the people who dropped their milk teeth and got their wisdom teeth in the 80s, 90s, into the early 2000s. These guys, in the next 10 years, 2032 or so, they'll be exiting the stage. And that's for sure. The Raila Odingas, the Kalonzo Musyokas, the Mudavadis, Ruto, Uhuru, these guys will be exiting the stage, at least taking a back seat in national politics in 2032. In a short 9 years' time, only one election stands between now and then, 2027. In 2032, we will be looking into our ballots and actually thinking who are taking over the reins of this country, taking it forward at national level. We need to start thinking about that now. In terms of who are these leaders? Can we identify them now and start seeing these are the kind of leaders who will be the statesmen and women who will take this country forward? When these ones, Kina Charity Ngilu, Kina Martha Karua, start taking a backseat and exiting the stage in 2032, what happens next? Who do we see taking the reins of the country? What have we seen from those two generations that have been there? The current generation has understood a certain language. The first generation was not actually the guys who were in the bush. These were the guys who were in the offices and going to Lancaster and all. And so their language and all was different. Not like the fighters of the Mau Mau and the others who were in the bush. Theirs was different, it was engaging. These current leaders, theirs is a bit different. It was push, clamor for second liberation. So it's a language of, mandamano and pushing and getting things done by the loudest voices possible and, action. The next leaders, what are they going to be based on?
It's very interesting you should bring this up, Eric, because when there are things you can predict, and this is the one field where I am very hesitant to predict. And for the very reason that there are those who will appear to be at the forefront, and you'll think these people represent the next generation. But between the thinking and the actualization, a lot happens. And a lot of it has to do with what it is that is perceived to be the fundamental needs of the country. And the leaders who will present themselves and position themselves as people who are leading that charge of representing what the needs of that country at that point will be. If we have a country, by say even the next general election, where this UHC matter is resolved, there is piped water in almost every home. There's solar, all these things they keep talking about. Even when it is a Maram road, it is not only passable, it's a beautiful road. When all these things seem not to be an issue, there are schools around every corner, there are teachers. The sort of leader who will be required will not be the leader who's telling us you're going to build roads because we will have roads.
Yeah.
They will not be telling us they're going to get us employment because the opportunity for employment will have been there. They'll have understood whatever matrix you need to ensure that employment doesn't mean you get a job. It means you do something, etc., whatever it will be. But what is easy to predict, though, is if I look at the trajectory of the thinking of this current crop of leaders, they have learned the rhetoric of what it is that you need to say to people. But they've also acquired the worst possible traits of past leaders whose main cause seem to have been to plunder the nation as much as you possibly can. So that combination brings a dichotomy. So these younger people who you're talking about are busy watching this and studying.
Yeah.
What do you think this dichotomy does to their thinking and to the building of their ethos as to what it is they can be as leaders? What do you pick up and what do you leave? Because behind all this, there seems to be the consistent narrative of impunity, that you can get away with stuff. Okay? So, if we're seeing it now, and these people have remnants of the previous generations where there was a modicum of control and balance, the next generation will have no such qualms.
Yep.
They will have no such barriers. So, what do you think they're going to do? And how do you think they're going to lead? Especially
because they are taking their lessons from this current.
Oh, they're taking it every single day. Every single day they're taking it. And they're absorbing and saying, okay, we see. They'll push some aside, but essentially, right now, they are very clear about what they think is important. It's it's even cynical. You know, when people look at this concept of people lining up to receive 200 bob in an election, it seems bizarre. It isn't. It's like people gave up on anything that could be done. So you've come to a point where you say, let me just receive mine up front, okay? And then you go and do what I know you're going to do anyway. Because the things you say you're going to do, you will not do.
You will not do anyway.
Yes. And yet, that is actually not true. A lot actually gets done. Even with all the nonsense we talk about and we see, a lot gets done. It's sad, but it's not just talked about enough. In all honesty, a lot gets done. But for me,
but
the thing...
a lot more could get done.
No, not
a lot gets done.
Infinitely more.
What's the percentage of what potentially could be done is getting done?
Precisely. You see, I don't even know the percentage. But what I do know is that when something is done, I now see that more could have been done, but it isn't. If absolutely nothing was done, then I'd say, here nothing gets done. But that's not true.
Not true.
Things actually do get done. And so you ask the question cynically again, is it so that we can get the impression that this little is good enough? So that we are content with mediocrity. We are content with as little as possible. This one, the glass is half empty. Okay? But you're being told, no, chief, it's full, it's half full. And you are content with that. And the question is, are people really content? Or is it a coping mechanism that we've acquired over time so that just to exist, you don't raise too much dust. You don't make too much noise. You know what you want, but you're not going to stand out and stick your neck out as the person who's saying these many, many, many things.
Yeah, it's too much.
Yes.
The truth of the matter is that folks have not been shown the maximum potential of what is possible under proper leadership. And that's the truth. That this thinking that we're talking about now, we'll take the bare minimum. When a road is supposed to be done from point A to point B, completed, because you've not seen it, you'll say, well, at least they've put Maram. Do you see what I'm saying? So you say, well, okay, we're comfortable with that because, look, it's better than it was before.
Yeah.
And we're saying that an education that a child should get, this is what it should actually look like from start to finish. But you say, look, well, at least they're not in the house. You see?
You're taking the wins.
Yeah, exactly.
Small, incremental.
Right, small,
win.
incremental. You say, look, a marketplace where people are going to sell their wares or, practice their trade, surrounded by garbage. Well, you say, well, look, at least the building is there for us to go and sell and we can pay a wage to somebody. You see what I'm saying? Because you have not, the reality of a maxed out potential has not been presented to people, and that's the truth. We can call it whatever we want, we can shout it out from morning to night, but the truth of the matter is that the full potential of what is actually possible has not been shown. The order, the lack of corruption, the lack of impunity, the lack of thievery in broad daylight, the opposite has not been shown. I agree with what you're saying, that things are being done. If they weren't being done, we would be in an abyss. It would be terrible. We would not be able to. The truth of the matter is that things are being done. The lights are on and people can get from point A to point B. People can get something to eat. Sometimes. Okay? But the full, what you're actually able to do, people have not grasped that. And because of that, you cannot then imagine what somebody who was able to take you then from the point of being able to eat to the point of self or country actualization has not occurred. Now, how dare you dream that it is possible
to get something
this side
bigger
of the pond to get somebody who would take you there? The truth of the matter is that it's imprinting. The next leader is more likely to follow what they have seen. The people who come into positions of leadership are going to say, who am I to change the status quo?
Yep.
I'm going to just go into, this is the way it's been done. Let's just get on the hamster wheel and keep going until my time is over.
That's because they're being nurtured by the current guy.
Exactly.
And the current society. This society that is saying, all right, I'll take this as a win. I'll take that 5% is better than 0%.
Exactly. Also,
all right? This other leader is showing you, just give them 5%, they'll be happy.
If you
just
build
give them
one
5.
thing, imagine somebody comes in and says, let me tell you, I was there before. We've had these conversations. I was there before. Just build them one building. They will be happy. and then you finish and you have one building. Can you imagine that is the standard that we've now set and say, just build one road, they'll sing your praises forever. Meanwhile, on this planet, these human beings, thinking capacity, the same. Maybe some even more on this side of the pond. Thinking capacity, but they're able to do this simultaneously across board in concert. Human beings. So we ask ourselves, who is the next leader? Now, there are two. There is the one who will come and perpetuate the status quo, or there is the one who's going to turn the entire thing on its head and say, absolutely not. We will not continue this way. If we want to get to that place whereby a Kenyan today can decide, you know what? Everything I can do in this country, I've realized. Let me now go and climb. Let me say that my next goal is to climb all the mountains in the world. You're not worrying about what you're going to eat. You're not worrying about whether your children will go to school. No, that's been done. We've achieved. We've scaled. Let's do something else that will give me satisfaction. There's two leaders. There's one who will continue with this thing and will just keep tumbling down the road. Or there's the one who say, absolutely not. Let's walk upright up the hill. Who do you want it to be?
The main assignment lies with us, the voter, right?
Exactly.
To identify and to encourage that person to come out. Because that person currently, you hear all the time that we have conversations with MPs here and all, they tell you, you know what, as you're campaigning and you're thinking of the things that you want to do, you get into parliament and you realize there's how this system works. And you've got to conform at least to deliver that 1%. Because if you don't conform with this system, even that 1% you'll not deliver, you're going home. So there's a thing here that there are people who actually mean well, they want to do something, but then they get swallowed up into the system and they're forced to stay where they are. Now, can we identify those people and actually help them to remove the lead and show them that no, you go in there, we'll be behind you, we'll support you, go and topple that apple cart.
Can I give you an example? And it's totally different in terms of what it is, but the principle is the same. Where you're talking about egging somebody on as an electorate, as the people who are in the majority who know they want better.
Yep.
There's a woman called Billie Jean King. She's still alive. Pro tennis player. And she fought for equal pay between male tennis players and female tennis players. And she said, okay, we're winning the tournaments. I play a tournament, I win, you give me some money. But I know that because a man who is playing the same game that I'm playing is earning 9 times what I'm earning because he's a man. So do you know what she did? She got like-minded people, men, players, said, come on, guys, we're playing the same sport. Why can't we earn the same? These are people on the circuit. These are people who are traveling the world to play. These are organizers of a tournament. The US Open and the stadium where she plays today is the stadium where they play is named after her. So people who played on that particular Grand Slam, she said, you guys, let's be known as the Grand Slam, whereby, number one, we pay people the same, man, woman, whatever it is that you would identify in the future. Let's pay everybody the same. This thing you're talking about, egging people on, people of like mind hold themselves up in hotels, tournament after tournament after tournament, and they said, you know what, we'll do one of two things. One, we'll either not play, and this tournament will go down in blazes, and it will never be heard of again, or we will insist that as you pay one, we will share the money so that it ends up that man and woman earn the same. And they did it over and over and over again until this tournament became the first one in the circuit whereby men and women earned the same amount of money, and others now followed suit. But it took one person to insist that this is what they wanted to see. And they knew that there were people who agreed with it, but they were silent because they did not know how. They had to come together. And that's what you're saying. I believe today that there are leaders in Kenya, there are leaders around Africa who are sitting quietly in the halls, in the shadows, because they've been swallowed up by the system. And they don't know what to do. But if they had people who would coalesce around them, who would be with them in concert, I'm telling you, the things that would happen here would be fundamental in terms of shift, in terms of governance, in terms of leadership, in terms of getting rid of corruption. If the system was so changed because you had people who would stand up and surround themselves. Right now, you have people who are standing up, but they're surrounding the wrong ideals.
Yep.
Now, imagine if you had the same ethos around the right ideals. How far would we be? That leader is here. The leader is here. The leader is with us. It's very possible they could not be in the National Assembly. It's also very possible that they are. But where is that coalescing to say, okay, we're hearing what you're saying, we're going to stand up against the status quo? That's what needs to happen.
You only need to look at the history of the founding president of this country. What he was, what he did, where he stood in the political. He was not at the top list of the leaders in the early days of this fight. He wasn't. KAU, Kenya African Union, he wasn't even the boss. No. If you're talking about luminaries who were in Legico, he wasn't even there. There is an interesting twist that only hindsight can provide you with answers to. When you look back, you say, oh, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then here we are. And do you're spot on. Why you're spot on is because you're right. There's no situation we have in this country. There are those who, for want of a different path to follow, will simply go the status quo. There are those who will be tired of it. So very tired of it that they will want to do something. And you know, oddly enough, the changes that we talk about that went over time and culminated in our new constitution was precisely the very thing that you're saying.
Yep.
Some people said, you know something, we'll be jailed, it's okay. Some will even die, it is okay. But this thing's going to change. And people were detained. Some were maimed for life. Some never recovered. That those who are dead are just not remembered. We have this tendency in this country, you start with Mau Mau, you forget the people who fought in Mau Mau, disregard them. Second liberation, you forget the people who suffered, died, jailed, went into exile, they're forgotten. Now, when we make the mistake of forgetting the path that led us here, we are forgetting our heritage. In Germany, because of the Holocaust is a taught subject. Taught. From the earliest possible stage, you are taught. There is no way you're going to go through that education system of university and claim you do not know, because you are taught. You even pass exams. That is how people understand that there are certain things in your history you must not push aside. And ours we shouldn't, and yet we do. You actually rewrite the history to favor those who are in power. And yet, if you look at this history, look at this discussion we're having. There are countries in our neighbors, you can't have this discussion. You can't have such a show. You actually can't. You have the show, but you know you're being waited for outside. The gains that we speak of and the benefits are evident all around us. But it is not right for us and for the next generation to put up with the little that we have when there's so much more that's available.
There's a lot.
That's it.
And if you just look around, like you're saying, those leaders are present. Those that were pushing for liberalism, those who were pushing for let's have openness of voice and thought and ideas, were many.
There are very many.
And were just being, suppressed here and there.
Yes.
Some of them did not want political leadership.
No, they were not even interested.
They just were pushing for those ideals.
Yes.
Then there are those who wanted political leadership, who also had their own ideas. But somehow the society was not listening to them.
Yes.
For some reason.
Yes.
Because society was now being forced to look at this. When you talk about Meru, these are the kingpins. When you talk about Embu, these are the kingpins. Ukambani, these are the kingpins. Of course, these are the kingpins. By the status quo that is, hoisting some people and saying, when you think about politics in your area, this is the person.